Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope everybody is doing fantastic. Feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. I'm just getting set up over here. And let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. And as usual, don't be shy. Introduce yourself in the comments. Definitely looking forward to interacting with all of you who are tuning in today. Whether you're actively job seeking or you're passively job seeking, every week, Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, I go live on my live stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. So shout out to everyone tuning in on all those platforms. And whatever your job search questions are, feel free to put in the comments as well. Today's topic is, what do recruiters look for in resumes and LinkedIn profiles, right? So I'm just going to go over a couple of basic tips in regards to that. I'm not sure if the notification even went out, so let me just quickly check on that. And you folks, do me a favor. Let me know in the comments if you can see me and hear me okay. And we'll get this session started right at 11 o'clock. Yeah, it looks like I am live. Okay, all right. Sounds good. So I guess we have a bit of a shy crowd in here today. Oh, no, we got one comment here. We got Vijay all the way from India. Good to see you here, Vijay. Thanks so much for tuning in. Keep the comments coming, folks. Introduce yourself. Folks, the number one challenge you will face in your job search is lack of visibility. Nobody knows you exist. Nobody knows who you are. All right. Now, I'm not saying that some hiring manager is going to see your profile based on the comments, but it's a great starting point. It's a great way for you folks to be more visible, right? So take advantage of this. Introduce yourself in the comments, and let me know your thoughts on today's topic. What do you think recruiters are looking for when they look over your resume as well as your LinkedIn profile? I'd love to hear from you, because that's the topic I'm going to be covering today. We got a few more comments here. We got Shreya. Shreya Raheja. Shreya says, hi, I'm Shreya. I've attended your webinars before. I'm looking for a co-op opportunity in project management. Awesome. Sounds good, Shreya. Make sure, folks, you let us know what city you're in as well, all right? So, Shreya, I'm not sure which city you're in, but thanks so much for tuning in. Great to have you here. And Nicole says, what do you think about Swift and Swift UI? Nikhil, you gotta ask an iOS developer about that. I'm not a developer myself. So for those of you tuning in for the first time, my name is Dean Kulaweera. Thanks so much for tuning in. My background is in IT recruitment. So I've been in the recruitment staffing industry for about 8+ years. And every week when I do my live stream, I talk about job search tips and strategies and tactics based on my 8+ years in the staffing industry, right? So that's what I bring to the table, Nicole. So I'm not the guy to ask about Swift and Swift UI, all right? But I'm sure maybe some of the viewers might be able to help you out with that. So, you folks should be networking with each other, right? All right, so let's get this party started, right? So today's topic is recruiters. What are recruiters looking for when they're reviewing your resume as well as your LinkedIn profile? Now, before I get into today's topic, just a quick announcement. So I'm going to be, for those of you in Toronto, I'm going to be speaking at the TO Tech virtual career fair, which is happening today. So the career fair is between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And I'm sharing the stage with these other amazing, fantastic speakers. Shout out to TO Tech. It's a fantastic career fair. I've spoken there a couple of times. I think this is like my 5th or 6th time speaking. It's a great event, great networking opportunity. Always a lot of great speakers that everyone can learn a lot from. So it's taking place today between 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. If you want to register, you can check out their website. I believe it's totechcareerfair.com, or look them up on LinkedIn, on LinkedIn company pages, and they should have more registration information regarding that. Now, if you want to tune into my session is going to be very specific, and I'm going to be speaking about 7 ways to kickstart your 2021 job search. Now, for those of you who tune into my live session in the new year, I'm covering the same topics, so it might be kind of a repeat for those of you who already tuned into that live stream. But for the rest of you who missed it out, it might be a great opportunity for you to take a look at my 7 tips for kickstarting your job search for 2021. So my session is going to be at 2:40 p.m. Eastern time zone, right? So it's not for the entire 2 hours. My session is specifically at 2:40 p.m. Eastern time zone. So if you are registered, if you are attending, hey, I hope to see you there, and happy to share those tips with all of you folks. All right, so make sure you check it out. A few more shout outs here. So Sonali says, skills, education, job roles, and responsibilities are the primary things that we look in resume and LinkedIn profile. So yeah, absolutely, Sonali, right? So I guess, Sonali, you're a recruiter. So Sonali's saying, hey, recruiters are looking for skills, education, job roles, and responsibilities as the main thing when reviewing resume and LinkedIn profile. So definitely agree with you on that, Sonali, and thanks so much for tuning in. All right, so I'm going to share my tips, and this is based on my experience as a recruiter myself, folks. All right, and feel free to keep the comments coming. Feel free to keep sharing your questions, whether it's about today's topic or any job search related questions that you have. I'm happy to answer your questions and put in the comments. And I will also share a link for you folks to tune in live as a live caller and ask me your questions as well. All right, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to share that link shortly. So Vladimir actually share. So Vladimir, shout out to Vladimir. Vladimir says, hi, Dean, everyone. Here's the link for TO Tech. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Vladimir. So it's actually, so I guess I was right. It's www.totechcareerfair.com. So, folks, Vladimir was, sorry, I'm apologies, my friend. I pronounced your name incorrectly. It's Vladimir. So Vladimir shared the link in the comments. So feel free to check that out. Thanks so much for sharing that link, Vladimir. Appreciate that. If you want to register, make sure you check that out, folks. All right. Okay, so today's topic, getting right into it. So I'm going to share with you four broad areas that recruiters are going to be looking for when they're reviewing your resume as well as your LinkedIn profile. All right, so this is very important. This is definitely a session you want to take notes on. And after I finish the four areas I want to cover, I'm going to open it up for the Q&A, and you folks can either call in live and ask me your questions, or you can put in your questions in the comments, right? I do encourage you to call in live. I'd love to interact with all of you folks, because it's different, right? Versus just reading your comments, your questions from the comments. All right, so tip number one, what the recruiter is going to be looking for on your resume is definitely, number one, is skill set fit. All right, recruiters are going to be looking for skill set fit, cultural fit, personality fit. Are they going to fit into the team? Like, that stuff is usually stuff that's handled by the hiring team itself, like the hiring manager themselves or the department or the team. The recruiter is basically the recruiter's primary task, folks, is to understand what skills are required for the position, and then go out into the marketplace, right, and look for the people who have these specific skills. So tip number one is they're going to be looking primarily for skills and skill set fit. All right. Now, the reason why this is so important, and it's no coincidence that I put this as item number one, is if your resume and if your LinkedIn profile is not skill set rich, right? It's not mentioning these specific skills and skill sets that you have that are required for the positions that you're applying for. Recruiters are not going to be able to find you, right? Because keep in mind, recruiters are not simply posting jobs and just waiting for applications to come in. Most recruiters, especially staffing agency recruiters, they're going to be using proactive methods of trying to find you, right? So when I say proactive methods, they're going to be going on LinkedIn, they're going to be going on their ATS, they're going to be searching for you on those online resume boards, and or even on the job boards as well. And they're going to be putting in keyword. They're going to be conducting what's called keyword searches, right? Now, these keyword searches are primarily revolve around skills and skill sets. All right. So, for example, let's say I'm a recruiter. I'm looking for let's say a Java developer who has worked on software projects in the retail industry. Let's say that's the skill set combination or the kind of the profile I'm looking for. So when I'm conducting my search, whether that's on LinkedIn, on the ATS, on the job boards such as Indeed, Monster, et cetera, I'm going to be looking for probably those key skill sets, right? I'm going to be looking for Java developer. I'm going to be looking for let's say I know what kind of other technologies I'm looking for. Maybe there's a front end component, right? Maybe I'm also looking for Angular, so I might put Java developer. That's one skill set. I might be putting Angular as another skill, and then I'm going to be putting retail, right? That's not really a skill, but it's still a major keyword that's going to be included in the search. Now, if those keywords and if those skills, and that's a very brief example I'm providing you here with folks, but if those skills and those keywords are not mentioned in your resume as well as your profile, your LinkedIn profile, either the recruiter is not going to find your resume or your LinkedIn profile, or your LinkedIn profile is not going to capture their attention. So skills and skill sets, you got to take inventory. Okay, what skills do I have, right? And if you're an IT professional, you got to list out all those technical skills, folks. All right, technical skills, very important for you to list out and ensure that these things are listed on your resume and at least highlighted for the projects that you've listed out on your resume, because otherwise it's not going to grab the attention of the recruiter if they're looking over your resume. Recruiters are going to be keeping an eye out on skills and skill sets for those of you in tech, IT, technical skills and technical, all those keywords associated with technical skills. You got to make sure that that's what's included on your resume as well as on your LinkedIn profile as well. All right. So that's tip number one. Always remember, recruiters are looking for skills and skill sets. So you got to make sure that these are highlighted and emphasized and listed in detail on your resume. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention about this is most of you are doing a great job at this on your resume. All right. Your resume is detailed. It's got your skills listed out and all that stuff, which is great. Now, many of you, however, are lacking in this area on your LinkedIn profiles, right? So this is where you're not able to take full advantage of LinkedIn. A lot of you have simply created what I like to call an empty profile, right? You got your name, you got your title, you've listed your previous or recent or previous companies. You got the company name, you got the title, you got the date, and that's it. Guess what, folks? They're not going to be able to find your profile because they're going to be conducting their keyword searches are going to be revolving around skills. And if you're not listing your skills out and describing each position, what you did, your profile is not going to show up on the top of the search results, right? Definitely not on the first page of the search results. So as much detail as you're putting on your resume, you got to make sure you put as much effort and detail into your LinkedIn profile as well. And I'm talking about each of your positions, right? Your current position, your previous position. A lot of you folks are leaving the description area empty or blank. You're not filling anything out. So when you fill that out, you mention in detail your skills, the technical details in terms of the projects you've been a part of, technical environment, maybe software you've used, whatever. Like you got to put in as much effort and as much detail into your LinkedIn profile as well, folks, because recruiters are going to be looking for skills. They're going to be doing their keyword searches. They're going to be including specific skills when they're conducting those searches, right? Now, I know I said one more thing already, but another thing I wanted to emphasize is recruiters are not going to be looking for soft skills, right? So if you put yourself as, diligent, courageous and all that stuff, that's not what recruiters are going to be, mentioning or really looking for. So you got to make sure that you're mentioning the hard skills, right? Technical skills. For those of you who are non-IT, whatever skills associated with your profession, right? So for example, maybe you're a non-technical person, maybe you're a project manager. So some skills associated with project management would be project management. What else? Stakeholder management, change management, and other skills like that related to your profession. So you don't have to be necessarily IT or tech in order to do this. Whatever your field is, folks, you gotta make sure that the skills associated with your field and with your profession are included in your LinkedIn profile. This is a huge thing, very important. All right. So moving on to number two. Number two is recruiters are going to be looking for relevant details on projects. All right. Now, if you have applied for a specific position, now I'm talking about your resume right now. If you're applying for a specific position, having read the job description, there's a certain emphasis on certain types of projects. You have to make sure, folks, that you highlight and emphasize and customize your resume to highlight those relevant projects. Recruiters are going to be looking for relevance, right? So skills are going to get their attention, right? Okay, this person's got the skills. Okay, I should probably read their resume in a bit more detail. Now, the next thing is there relevant information on your resume? Because if it's not relevant, folks, you're not going to keep their attention. It's one thing to keep the recruiter's it's one thing to get the recruiter's attention. It's another thing. Task number two is keeping the attention. And how do you keep the attention? By listing relevant projects on your resume. All right. So I know this is tedious. Like you gotta, it's kind of tedious. You gotta kind of customize your resume when you apply for these positions. But if it's not relevant, you're not going to keep the attention. All right. So quick example. Let's say again, it's you're applying for a position. They're looking for someone who has experience with, e-commerce projects. All right. E-commerce projects. Now, obviously you might want to list out all of your projects on your resume, but you want to put especially you want to highlight any of your e-commerce projects experience. That's what you want to highlight on your resume because that's the most relevant piece of information you want the recruiter to internalize when they're reviewing your resume, right? So relevance, folks. Number two is relevance, right? You got to put details in for relevant projects. If it's not relevant, it's not going to keep their attention. They're going to either move on to the next position or they're just going to quickly skim your resume and they're going to look for people with more relevant experience. So your task, you got to review the job description. You got to take note of, what patterns you see here. Like, does it look like they're looking for some specific type of experience? Maybe it's specific industry experience. Maybe it's specific to certain technologies. Maybe it's specific to certain types of methodologies. Maybe it's specific to certain types of tools, whatever it is. Like you gotta analyze the job description and then make sure you highlight those relevant things on your resume. All right. So this is where a one size fits all resume is not going to be effective when you're applying to a specific position. So always aim for relevance, folks. Highlight the relevant projects on your resume so that that's going to keep the attention of the recruiter. So that, the first thing is they're like, okay, yeah, this person's got the right skills. Okay, great. Now the next thing is, all right, they've got the relevant experience as well. Now they're really leaning in. They're more interested in actually picking up the phone and giving you a phone call. All right. So we got. I'm just gonna go through some quick comments here. So Sanjana says hi Sanjana, thanks for tuning in. Krunal says you're right. It's very easy to add skills on the profile, but still we miss it. Thanks for reminding. Hey, no worries, Krunal. And you know what, folks, don't feel bad if you're missing this. Everyone makes this mistake, like on your LinkedIn profile, right? Because we're so used to doing things real quick and getting things done easily, right? But the best time to make a change, folks, is right now, right? So after this session, if you haven't done so already, take the time to go over your LinkedIn profile. Make sure it's nice and detailed and it lists those key skills and relevant projects as well, right? So Shreya says, since I'm in project management student, I only have Microsoft Project as a software. Does that affect my job search, considering I'm still a student looking for internship? So Shreya, not necessarily, right? So obviously you're a new graduate, you're starting out your career, but I'm sure you use other software as well, right? Like I understand you're using Microsoft Project, but there's other important software utilized by project management for project management positions as well, right? So maybe Microsoft Excel, maybe Microsoft Word. So you gotta don't underestimate the importance of these various software and tools that you have used, Shreya, as a student, right? Don't just write it off. Like you still should mention that on your resume, right? And same thing with your relevant academic projects as well. So next thing, and yeah, so thanks Shreya, and hope that helps. And Sonali says skills should be given with expertise level in resume. Yeah, absolutely, Sonali. It's very important to list the skills on the resume. Definitely very, very important. All right, we got a question here. Ali says, how do we write relevant projects on a resume? So good question, Ali, right? So this basically comes down to, what does the job description dictate in terms of what they want to see in the ideal candidate? That's the first task. You got to analyze the job description. Or if you have a point of contact, which is maybe a staffing agency, or maybe it's a direct contact with the company, you should ask them, hey, what are you looking for in an ideal candidate for the position? Like what are the key aspects for this role? And that'll allow you, Ali, to determine what aspects of your background you want to highlight and what relevant projects you want to mention on your resume. Now, this is especially important for those of you folks who are at a senior level, right? Like you got 10 plus years experience, 8 plus years of experience. You might have like hundreds of projects under your belt. Understanding the relevance of what they're looking for in an ideal candidate will allow you to select which projects you want to specifically mention on your resume in a bit more detail, right? So that's how you would go about doing that, Ali. Great question. Hope that helps. So I see some other questions here, folks. I'm going to get to your questions soon. I just have 2 more points I wanted to cover, and then we're going to get into the Q&A part, all right? So tip number 3, extremely important, right? And this is something that not only recruiters, but hiring managers do as well. And unfortunately, I have seen, folks, okay, pay good attention to this. I have seen organizations pass on candidates for violating what I'm about to speak about, all right? For violating this very important tip, which is tip number 3, which is congruency and consistency between resume and LinkedIn profile. Okay, I'm going to repeat this again. It's very important, folks. Pay good attention to what I'm saying, all right? So congruency, right? Consistency between resume and LinkedIn profile. This means congruency in dates you were working, congruency in the companies that you've listed, congruency in what you did, the actual role itself. If there is a disconnect, if there's a discrepancy between what you mentioned on your resume as well as on your LinkedIn profile, you will get dismissed, folks. Dismissed as in your candidacy is going to be overlooked. Okay, and I'm speaking from personal experience as a recruiter. When I have presented, when I have a conversation with candidates, and sometimes I've presented candidates, and for whatever reason, I might have missed out looking for that congruency between the resume and the LinkedIn profile. But my client, the hiring manager, has, and they see a discrepancy in terms of there's different dates listed on the resume versus on the LinkedIn profile. They're like, hey, Dean, we're going to pass on this candidate. They've got totally different dates on their resume versus their LinkedIn profile. So I don't want that to happen to you folks. Now, why you would have different dates on your resume or your LinkedIn profile, I don't know, right? But my point here is, folks, you got to make sure that it is 100% congruent and consistent, right? The dates that you worked at a specific company on your resume got to be the same on LinkedIn, because recruiters and hiring managers, they're going to be comparing the two. First thing they do after they review your resume is probably look you up on LinkedIn, right? And first thing they do after they, communicate with you on LinkedIn is maybe ask for your resume and then look over your resume. If there's a lack of consistency between these two, documents, there's going to be a problem. They're gonna overlook you. They're gonna want to pass you. All right. So company names, titles, time frame worked at the companies. These need to be consistent. Okay, it has to be consistent, folks. Make sure you do that. I know it's such a simple thing, but I have seen great people get passed on simply for making this mistake. Now, why the dates were different and stuff like that, I'm not sure. Like maybe, like, you know what? For the most part, folks, it could simply be that you just didn't remember what month what month of the year you were working at this company. So you got to make sure, folks, that you are, whatever the case is, whatever your reasoning is, you got to make sure the dates, the company, the position, and all that stuff is 100% in alignment, on your resume as well as on your LinkedIn profile. So you got to make sure you do that, folks. All right. So tip number 3, very, very important. You got to make sure recruiters and hiring managers, especially recruiters, they're going to be looking for congruency. Is this person's LinkedIn profile consistent with what I see on the resume? And vice versa. Is this person's, is the stuff mentioned on the resume consistent with what's mentioned on the LinkedIn profile? If there is a discrepancy, the recruiter doesn't want to look bad, right? Presenting such a person's profile to the hiring team. And they're gonna not move ahead with you or give you some excuse or say something like that. And if it's a hiring manager, they're definitely not going to move ahead with you if they happen to check both of those sources. So make sure you do that, folks. Definitely something recruiters are going to be looking for is congruency between LinkedIn profile and resume. If you haven't done that already, take the time to make sure, if you're able to do it side by side, your LinkedIn profile and your resume, and make sure that they are consistent and congruent. Extremely important, folks. All right. So going on to tip number 4. Tip number 4, in terms of something that recruiters really look for, is ease of, and this is going to sound so simple, but it's such a point of frustration for so many recruiters, which you can take advantage of, and that is contact information. Make it as easy as possible, folks, for recruiters to be able to pick up the phone or send you an email and get in touch with you. I would recommend pick up the phone. The phone is the quickest way, especially if a recruiter is very, very interested in getting in communication with you. You got their attention from your skills listed on the resume. They see the relevant projects. The next thing is you want to minimize the amount of time it takes for the recruiter to get from point A to point B. And point A to point B is to get in communication with you, right? They're looking at your resume, your LinkedIn profile here. You want to get them here as soon as possible, where you're able to communicate with them. So I know some of you have some reservations about putting your phone number on your resume and stuff like that, and I understand that. But I'm just giving you the reality, folks. All right, recruiters are going to want to speak with you as soon as possible. If they see the fit, they love your profile, they love your resume, you want to help move them onto that step as soon as possible. All right. So I know you. I'm not saying to put your phone number publicly on LinkedIn. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't expect you to do that. But at the very least, you got to put a note on your profile that says, hey, if you're interested in discussing, further, or, if you're openly looking for jobs, you can openly put that on your profile. You can say, send me a direct message for contact information so we can communicate. Now, for those of you who are, looking for new work while you're currently employed, obviously you can't do that. But my point is, even if you're chatting with with the recruiter through LinkedIn messaging, if they're interested in your profile, you want to provide them with your phone number so you can, as soon as possible, get into that, have an actual business conversation. Now, on your resume, same thing. I advise you folks, put your phone number there. You don't have to put your address, right? A lot of you folks are putting your full address details. I personally would not feel comfortable doing that. I don't want people to know my address. So I would say that it's not required to put your full address there. But folks, my suggestion, put in your phone number and your email address. Now, I'm not a fan of email, and I'll tell you why. It's because I've experienced many times where I've sent an email out and the recipient does not even receive it, right? It ends up in the spam folder, ends up in the junk mail. And unfortunately, what happens is, like a month or two later, suddenly this person checks their junk folder or spam folder, or maybe a few weeks later, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, this ended up in my spam folder. I'm definitely interested in chatting more. But guess what, folks? By then, I've already presented, the short list of candidates. So I don't want that to happen to you folks, right? Especially if you're actively looking, you're in a situation where you really need to, bump up those interviews and get some conversations going. I highly advise you folks to put your phone number there because it's the quickest way for the recruiter to get in communication with you. All right. Because it becomes so easy, right? So you got the right skills listed on your resume. You got their attention. You kept their attention because you got the relevant projects on your resume. They've compared it to your LinkedIn profile. It's consistent. It's congruent. Next thing they want to do is I want to speak to this candidate. I want to speak to this individual as soon as possible. So if you want that to happen, highly recommend, folks, you put your phone number there. Make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to get in touch with you, right? So my advice on your resume, please, please, please list your phone number so you're able to get in communication as soon as possible. Now, if you don't feel comfortable putting your phone number, I understand you probably have a good reason for that. Then put your email address. But if you're going to do that, folks, make it a note every single day. Check your spam folder, check your junk mail folder, just in case you've received an email of interest from hiring teams or recruiters that happens to have ended up in the junk mail or the spam folder, right? Because I don't want you folks losing out on opportunities out there simply because your email, whatever application you use, directed the email into your spam folder and your junk and your junk mail, and you forgot to check it, and you don't check it until like a month from now, and then you're like pulling out your hair frustrated because it was a great opportunity. So make sure you do that, folks. So those are my 4 tips, right, as to what really what recruiters are looking for when they're conducting their search. And I know this might sound like some very really simple basic tips, but this is the essence of what's going to capture the attention of recruiters as they're reviewing reviewing resumes as well as LinkedIn profiles, folks. These are some I know these are very broad things, but these are the major things that many recruiters are going to be looking for, right? So quick review of the tips, right? Number 1 is they're going to be looking for skill set fit. So your resume, your LinkedIn profile needs to be keyword rich. It has to be keyword rich with those specific skills and skill sets associated with your field and your profession. That's tip number 1. Second thing they're going to be looking for is, hey, details on relevant projects. Do you have relevant experience, right? You got their attention with the skills. Now you got to keep their attention by mentioning relevant experience. As impressive as all of your experience might be, folks, if it's not relevant, it's not going to keep their attention. So you got to go for relevance. List out relevant projects on your resume when you're applying to specific positions. All right. Number 3 is you got to make sure that there's congruency between your LinkedIn profile as well as your resume, right? There has to be consistency and relevance between not relevance, sorry, consistency and congruency between the two, right? What's the dates, the companies, the titles listed on your resume should match what is reflected on your LinkedIn profile. Congruency, consistency, extremely important, folks. Don't forget this. And number 4, make it as easy as possible for the recruiter to get in touch with you. That's what the recruiter wants. So many people, they don't list their contact information properly on their resume. And the ideal situation is you listing your phone number so recruiters can grab the phone and get in touch with you as soon as possible. And you want to get yourself in front of the hiring team, the hiring managers, as soon as possible, folks. That should be your aim. All right. So look, hope these 4 tips helps. Let me know your questions in the comments. I'm going to get around to the questions shortly. And let me share the link for those of you who want to, you want to ask me your question live, right? So let me share that link. If you want to be a live caller, you can use the link and make sure your mic is activated, folks. So let me just quickly enter that in the comments. And I'll share that link right now, and you folks can use that. All right. Let me share with the other platforms as well. Or if you don't want to ask me your question live, hey, feel free to put it in the comments, folks. I'm not going to ignore you folks in the comments, but happy to interact with you live. Right. So I shared the link in the comments for those of you who want to call in as a live caller. So you're most welcome to call in live. You can disable your camera if you're camera shy. If you don't want to show your face, that's fine. But make sure you got your mic activated so you can ask your question live, right? So I think we have a live caller here. We have VD, so I'm going to add VD. Hey, VD, how's it going?
Hi, good morning, Dean.
How are you doing? How did you find out about, have you been following me for a while?
Yes, actually, I have met you personally when I landed in Canada, and you were the first recruiter that I met.
Oh, fantastic. So that must have been a few years back. Was it a few years back?
It's been like almost 3 years now.
Oh, wow, wow. Okay, okay. So nice to be interacting with you again, Vidi. So, Vidi, what's your question for me, and how can I help you today?
So first of all, thank you so much for your tips, and
My
I have been
pleasure.
following you from a while and applying those tips. So thank you for this session.
My
And my
pleasure.
question is like, I do get calls from recruiters. They share the job description and they take the RTR, but
Mhm.
after that, I don't get any replies from them. Like I do take follow-ups, but I don't get any replies. So I want to ask like where I should work more on myself so that at least I clear that part and I go to the next process of at least getting an interview.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay, so Vidi, I'm assuming these are probably maybe high volume positions, maybe with banking or government. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay, all right, all right. So now, are you actually communicating with them over the phone, or are you simply responding through email?
phone.
Okay, good. So basically, they
So
reach out
actually,
to you.
phone and email both because first of all, they might contact me through a phone that this is the opportunity, this is, and I'll be sharing the job description with you. And
Right.
after that, they ask me for an RTR. So to give a basic background, I am having a software testing background, and I have 7 years of experience, and I'm looking for software quality assurance opportunities.
Okay, understood. So they reach out to you, then you get on a phone call with them. Now, on the phone call, is it a lengthy discussion? Are they sharing more details about the role itself, or what is that conversation usually like?
So the conversation is usually like asking about whether I'm available in the market
Mhm.
and what is my experience, and they will share the job description at my email ID, and they will ask about the RTR.
Okay, got it. All right. Okay, so what I feel is what's happening here, VD, it's probably not to do with you or anything you're lacking. It's simply because a lot of times, agencies working on these, these high volume positions, it's for them, it's like a numbers game, right? So they're trying to submit as many candidates as possible. So that's why it's a very quick conversation. They're probably not providing too much details about the project. They're probably, not providing details about the, the recruitment process or the hiring process and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that's probably what's happening. So it's not necessarily anything to do with you. It's probably that they're just speaking to a high volume of candidates and they're
Okay.
presenting them. And usually in these setups, there's actually another middle group that coordinates the relationship between the bank as well as the staffing agency. So a lot of times the agency does not have direct contact with the hiring manager or the hiring team.
Okay.
So their contact is actually the middle person, and usually there's a group in the middle that coordinates the communication between the hiring team and the agency. So they can't, so the recruiter actually can't even get much information in terms of updates or what's happening or what the feedback is. It's based purely on volume, right? So it's
Okay.
not necessarily anything to do with you. I'm not saying don't go with these positions, definitely keep doing it, but it is very much a numbers game.
Okay.
And it's dependent on whether how much of a fit you are for these positions that these sectors are looking for. So my advice to you, VD, is continue having these conversations. Just have a realistic outlook. Don't get disappointed if they don't get back. Again, it's simply a numbers game. They're just presenting as many candidates as possible. What I would advise you to do is don't depend on these opportunities as well, right? Because it's highly competitive, very much
Okay.
numbers driven. So keep on the lookout for other opportunities out there that are outside of this sector and domain as well. But don't give up on this sector as well,
Okay. Thank
right?
you
Did,
so much,
did
Jay.
that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much for calling in, Vidi, and have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right, folks. Great question there from Vidi, right? So if you want to call in live with your question, I shared the link in the comments. Feel free to tune in live. I'm going to go over the comments here. I think there are some other questions. So let's see here. So we got so we got Gaurav. So shout out to Gaurav. Always good to have you here, Gaurav. Thanks so much for tuning in. So Gaurav says, "Hi Dean, should we be mentioning dates from and to showing our work history?" Yeah, Gaurav, very good point, right? And this is especially important, folks, when you want the congruency between your LinkedIn profile and your resume. You got to make sure the dates are consistent. So yeah, Gaurav, I would highly recommend you put the month and the year when you're listing your work experience. And I'll tell you why. If you only put the year, this is usually a kind of not a red flag, but a kind of a point of concern for recruiters, because recruiters are thinking, hey, what is this person trying to hide? Like, why are they only putting the year? Because let's say, for example, Gaurav, you say that you worked at XYZ company from 2019 to 2020, and you only put the year. So me as a recruiter, that could mean that could mean like January 2019 to December 2020, or it could mean December 2019 to January 2020, in which case it's only 2 months you were there. So it makes me think, okay, this person is putting only the year because they're trying to hide that the fact that something happened there, or they were there for a very short time. And maybe that's the case, but in any case, Gaurav, you should list the month and the year. You should always list both, because otherwise the recruiter is going to be like, okay, this person is trying to hide something. All right. So hope that helps, Gaurav. Great question there. So Shreya has a question. So Shreya says, another question. I worked a side business back in my hometown. Can that be added as a work experience? So Shreya, good question. So Shreya, this depends on the relevance of this experience, right? Was it something relevant to the kind of roles that you're looking for, or was it like something nothing to do with? I think you're in. Sorry, excuse me. I think you're in project management, Shreya, if I remember right. So if it's not related to project management, and if it does not have a skill set that is transferable to project management, it might not be relevant, Shreya, right? So this goes back to, folks, remember what I one of the points I mentioned, relevance. Always mention, what was that? That was point number two. Point number two, remember point number two. Recruiters are looking for relevance, right? So if it's relevant experience, Shreya, absolutely feel free to do so. If it's not, might not, I mean, it's not really going to do anything for you, right? So great question there. Hope that helps, Shreya. Gaurav says also, is it fine to add volunteer experience on your resume? Yeah, absolutely, Gaurav. Always good to put in volunteer experience, especially if it's for like like a charity, or some organization you believe in. That's always good, because many hiring teams, hiring managers, they, that does interest them, right? In terms of how you give back to the community, that's something you want to convey. But also the other category is relevant volunteer experience, right? So if you have done some volunteer work where you're able to use your professional skills and contribute that on a voluntary basis, you absolutely 100%, folks, you should add that to your resume, because it's relevant as well. All comes down to relevance as well, folks. All right. So good question there, Gaurav. Hope that helps. We got Elham in the house. Hey, Elham, good to see you here as usual. Hope you're doing great. We got Gurpreet in the house. Hey, Gurpreet, good to see you here. Fantastic. Hey, Gurpreet and I, folks, are collaborating on a bootcamp program. So I'm probably going to go live on Gurpreet's LinkedIn maybe this afternoon, or probably we're going to do a live collaboration tomorrow and Friday as well to share more details. But we're, Gurpreet and I collaborating on a bootcamp for IT professionals. So feel free to message myself or Gurpreet for more information about that. So let's see what are the questions we have here. So Shell just says, what about freshers when you do not have any experience? All right, so this is a fantastic question, Shelja, right? So Shelja's like, hey, Dean, like, so what's up if I'm a new graduate? Like, how am I? What experience can I show? So Shelja, you got to leverage your academic projects, right? Those do count for something. If you're a new graduate, you're new to the field, new to the business, new to the career, you have to leverage your academic experience. So you when you were at school, you probably did some academic projects. You want to use that and leverage that as showing your ability to do the work that you're applying for. Now, the second thing, Shelja, is, and this might depending on your field and your skills, folks, but you got to start building your own portfolio of work as soon as possible, right? I would say while you're still in school, for those of you tuning in who are new grads, you got to make sure, folks, that while you're in school, you are building out your own portfolio of work. So aside from the academic projects, you're also building your own portfolio of work that demonstrates your knowledge and your ability to apply what you're learning in school. So again, long story short, Shelja, two things. Number one, leverage your academic projects. Number two, build out your own portfolio of work, which you can show and leverage as your ability to apply what you have learned in school. All right. So great question there, Shelja. Hope that helps. So Suzeli, and forgive me if I pronounce your name incorrectly, Suzeli, but I hope I got that right. Suzeli says, tip for public jobs resumes. So Suzeli, I'm not sure what exactly you mean here. By public jobs, do you mean like public sector, like government? I'm not sure if that's what you mean, Suzeli. Now, let's assume that's what Suzeli is talking about here, like public sector, like government jobs. Now, I can't speak on behalf of other countries, folks, but I have recruited on public sector government jobs here in Toronto and in Canada. For public jobs and public sector resumes, it's kind of a different story, at least here, based on my experience. Public sector, you got to be extremely detailed. Like, you got to list out all of your resume. Like, your resume should be as long as possible, basically, right? It's got to be like, I mean, for the public sector, for government sector, they want as much detail as possible. So when you're applying for positions in the public sector, my suggestion, you got to review, folks, listen to what I'm saying. This is very important because I have recruited on public sector positions. The job description, analyze it literally line by line, bullet by bullet, and you want to add in as much detail to your resume regarding each of those bullet points you do have experience with on your resume. And in the public sector, it's completely fine if your resume is like 15, 20, 30 pages. I've seen those kind of resumes for public sector and government sector positions. So it's completely fine. So yeah, this I'm great. I'm so glad you brought this up, Suzeli, because the government sector, public sector is a kind of a different story. You want it to be as detailed as possible, but it comes down to two things, folks. Right? You got to analyze the job description in as much detail as possible, the job description or the RFP or whatever it is. And the second thing is you want to add as much detail, as much detail about each and every one of those aspects listed on the job description, but also anything you've listed on your resume in as much detail as possible. Don't worry about the length. The public sector, apparently they love long resumes. I don't know how they do it, but hey, if they want to do it, hey, knock yourself out, right? But keep this in mind, folks. But Suzeli, thanks for that great question there. Hope that helps. We got Purnima. Purnima. So hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Thanks so much for tuning in. So Purnima says, "What about freshers with no experience, and why do they don't respond?" So I think I answered the first part of your question, Purnima, when I was responding to Shreya's inquiry in terms of what to do if you're a fresh new graduate. So that I've covered that part. Now the second part, why do they don't respond? All right. So why they don't respond, Purnima, is because they simply don't see the fit between the role that you're applying for and what you bring to the table. So first thing, Purnima, you got to make sure you are applying for entry level positions for new graduates and fresh new graduates. Because if you're a new graduate, you're applying for positions that require 2, 3, 4 years of experience, you're not going to get a response, because they require someone who has an existing professional skill set, who has professional experience, who can come on board and get to working. So for those of you who are new graduates, you got to make sure you're applying for roles that are entry level or that are specifically for new graduates and those who don't have any experience, if at all. Right? If you're applying for positions that do require experience, then you're not going to get that. I mean, you're not going to get a response. It's not going to get their attention, because you're not going to be the ideal fit. So hope that helps, Purnima. Great question. Gaurav says, thanks. Hey, no worries, Gaurav. Always good to have you here. Amil says, is there a type of resume template you recommend? All right. So Amil, this is a good question. All right. Now, folks, I would suggest, there's so many templates out there, folks. It's a matter of going on Google and just make sure that you're Googling something local to your, wherever you are. All right. So if you're in, for those of us in North America, Canada, and the US, the format is pretty much the same. Now, for those of you in other countries, Europe, India, China, maybe Australia, I don't know, maybe the format might be different. So take the time, folks, to maybe Google a template on LinkedIn to see what the template should be. But the content, what I spoke about in terms of the content, is consistent. You got to show relevance. You got to get their attention with skills, and you got to get their attention with relevance of projects. Because what recruiters are going to be looking for is going to be the exact same, no matter where it is, anywhere in the world. The recruiters are going to be looking for skills. They're going to be searching for you based on skills, and then they're going to be looking for relevant experience. So those two components remain consistent regardless of your location. The structure and the format, the design, the visual stuff, like you got to look at what's in your local country, city, or location in terms of how that should be done. We got Shreya. Shreya says, a volunteer experience not from Canada works well for recruiters, or should it be from the current residing country? Hey, Shreya, what I would focus on more, Shreya, is relevance. Is it relevant experience, right? If it's relevant, it shouldn't matter what country it's from. Like if you, for example, if you volunteered at a nonprofit in Indonesia, right, and you used your professional skills. Let's say you're a developer, you helped this charity out in Indonesia and maybe you were living in Indonesia. You help them out and you're a software developer. You help them code some application to help them do their donations better or something. Yeah, that counts, folks. Those hard skills, those technical skills, they're the same whether it's in Indonesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, or wherever. I'm like freestyling right now, but you get my point, right? Like your ability to use your professional skills, whether you use it in a different country or whether it's in your current location, it's the same, right? It's the same how you're doing it. Maybe there might be some, few differences here and there, but for the most part, it's the same. So yeah, I would go for relevance, folks, right? Go for relevance. That's what you should first be aiming for. We got Shelja says, thank you. Hey, no worries, Shelja. Hope that was helpful. Suzeli says yes. Okay, so you were talking about the government sector. Suzeli, all right, sounds good. And Gabriela, good to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in. All right, so Gabriela says, Dean, I have heard that it is quite important to have Canadian experience. What if you have experience working for multinational companies remotely? Isn't it the same? You work with people abroad and pretty familiar with North American culture. Thanks. Yeah, so folks, and Gabriela, great question here, and always good to have you here. Thanks for tuning in, Gabriela. Look, this is folks, she brought up a great point, right? This whole Canadian experience thing. And maybe for those of you in different countries, you might have a different situation. So the whole thing with Canadian experience, first of all, it's as far as Canada is concerned, it's not legal to discriminate against people simply because they don't have Canadian work experience. Now, there might be some sectors, some specific fields that do require local Canadian knowledge, but other than that, it's not legal, folks. All right. So if you're a hiring team, you're a company, and you're saying that to people, you're actually not allowed to say that unless your field or your sector does require someone with local Canadian knowledge for whatever reason, right? But that being said, Gabriela, right? Like your experience, like, yeah, you worked at multinational organizations, you've worked at multinational firms, you've interacted with North American teams. So, I mean, that experience does absolutely, it does count, folks, right? If you're a software developer, right? If you've been coding in Japan, right? I mean, Java in Japan is no different than Java over here in Canada or America or the US or North America or Europe. Like there's no difference pretty much, right? So this whole Canadian experience thing, or yeah, you need this, local experience. It never makes sense to me. That does not make sense to me. So what I would advise you, folks, right, for yourself, Gabriela, as well as anyone else, is you gotta don't let the first thing you gotta get over is this mental blockage or barrier you're gonna face. If you go in with this belief that I don't have Canadian experience, that's gonna affect your confidence. And if it affects your confidence, you're not gonna be able to convey yourself as someone who's competent and knows what they want to do and knows what they're doing and can operate in whatever role you're applying for, right? And that in itself is gonna be a huge issue. So first of all, you gotta understand, folks, the Canadian experience thing, unless it's for those fields that do require local Canadian knowledge of local Canadian laws or procedures or something like that. Outside of that, it makes zero sense for companies to say that they're not going to consider someone because they don't have Canadian experience. And the only issue here is, you don't have you don't have an existing track record or successes locally here in Canada or the US or wherever you are. So you got to focus on simply the fact that you do have that experience and you do bring experience to the table, and it's been at multinational corporations. You've interacted with North American teams. That's what you got to focus on, folks. That's what you got to bring in as your leverage. Don't focus on the fact that you've never worked in Canada before, right? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You have the experience, and that experience is the same and it's consistent, whether it is over here in Canada or somewhere else in the world. So hope that helps, Gabriela. Great question there. And look, folks, you might come across companies or agencies and stuff like that talk about this whole Canadian experience thing. Don't let it get to you. Don't let it demotivate you. You focus on your skill set, your knowledge, your value, your expertise, which you bring to the table. Because all that experience you had in your previous country, it's not gone to waste. It counts for something. In fact, it counts for a lot. So you need to make sure that you're demonstrating all that value and all that knowledge that you bring to the table, and how you can bring that to these employers over here. All right. So make sure you're aware of this, folks. So Prasad says, what jobs prospects for 14 years IT professionals from India to apply Canada? Yeah, Prasad, look, I'm gonna keep it real with you, Prasad, right? And this goes for those of you who are outside of the country. Right now, it's a very tough sell for employers to consider someone who's overseas in a different country. And I'll tell you why. There's just so much available talent here, Prasad, that it is very difficult for organizations here to justify considering people that are not even in the country, that are in a totally different location, right? So my advice to you, Prasad, if you're looking to move to Canada, start building your network right now. Start connecting with people and building relationships right now. And of course, on the other side of things, you got to look into the immigration process. So, do your due diligence with that stuff and start building your network before you arrive here. That way, when you do arrive here, Prasad, you're in a much stronger position to, leverage that network and get yourself in front of the right opportunities. All right. So hope that helps, Prasad. Great question. Samir says, how to hunt a job for freshers having no experience. So, Samir, I actually already answered this question before, so maybe you should just tuned in. After the session is finished, just maybe watch the replay. And I actually already responded to this question from someone already. All right, so thanks for tuning in. We got a live caller here. We got Krunal in the house. Hey, Krunal, how's it going? How are you doing?
Hello, Dean. What's up? I'm
Hi.
doing good.
Good, good, fantastic, fantastic, Krunal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have you been following me for a while?
Yes, yes, I'm following from last few months,
Oh,
probably six,
awesome, awesome.
7 months.
Awesome, awesome,
Yes,
awesome. Great to have you here. Yeah, I've seen you tune in for a couple of my live streams, I believe. So good to see a familiar name there. And thanks so much for tuning in. But what can I do for you, Krunal? What question do you have for me?
yes, yes. As you mentioned in last time, I have mentioned about the my interest working in Canada, and you said that I should start building my network, as you
Yeah,
mentioned for the previous question as well. So that is one thing. But the second thing you told me is to look for the migration process, which I tried to search a bit, and
right.
what I understand is. So there is a lot of money required
Uh-huh.
that needs to be invested to come to Canada. And I don't want to go into the depth of the process that requires to come to Canada. But
Right.
yeah, somehow we cannot get the loan for that purpose. I don't know. Let's do not compare that with the process. But yeah, so
Sure.
that is the thing. So my question is, how do I start? Like, because I believe that Canada, US is the culture that I want to work with, because right now I'm also working with the US based companies, and I love the way they work. So I want to learn a lot more with the culture that they have, and I think that suits me more than the way here in my country works.
Okay, understood, understood, Kunal. Okay, okay. Now, Kunal. Now, I can't really advise you on the immigration aspect of things because that's not my expertise. But my advice to you, based on your situation, is start with where you're at. Right. So you mentioned you're currently dealing with some clients in your current employer who are in North America. So my advice to you is, hey, let your manager know that you want more of those types of opportunities where you get to interact with North American teams. You get to build those relationships as well, and this will help you contribute to, again, building that network, right? And also what
Yes.
happens is, as you deal with more of these North American projects at your current company, this might give you the opportunity to even transfer, right? You never know. So speak with your manager,
Yeah.
your current manager, your current supervisor, and discuss and let him know, hey, look, I'm really enjoying interacting with these North American projects. How can I get into more of these types of projects so I can expand my understanding of these and get more involved in these types of opportunities? So that's the first thing, Kunal. So leverage your current situation, right? So I know the money situation for immigrating might not be ideal, but on the positive side, let's focus on the positive, right? So focus on where you're currently at, your current employer. Obviously, you have the opportunity to interact with North American clients, so expand on that. Look for more opportunities to do that, right? And the second thing is continue building out your local network here, right? Whether it's in Canada or in the US, see how you can get involved in maybe some virtual conferences, virtual networking groups where you're able to interact and build those relationships. Now, when you're attending those events, don't go in guns blazing and saying, "Hey, I need a job. Can you refer me? Can you sponsor me?" Don't do it like that. Build a relationship
Yeah.
based on build a relationship based on your expertise and your knowledge, right? Whatever your field is, that's how you should connect with people and build the relationships over here. And you never know, that might lead into further conversations about career opportunities and all of that stuff. But it's a win-win for you either way, because ultimately when you land here, you will have a strong network of contacts.
Yeah, sorry, Dean. I have one more question.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I'll quickly answer that. Yeah, so the another alternative to Canada or any other country, maybe US or UK, is second alternative is to go for studies. And what I
Uh-huh.
understood from in that is I have two options, wherein I can opt for a 1 year course where I'll get 1 year of work permit, and
Right,
there is another option of 2 years of course, so like not 2 years of course, but two courses of 1 year rather.
right.
So that will give me permit for 3 years, So I'm not really sure that whether I'll be if I opt for 1 year, then I'll get 1 year work permit, and which my risk which might like I might be taking risk for coming to that country if I don't get any
Right, right,
opportunity in one year. Yeah.
right.
So
So
what
so
should
so
be your
yeah,
suggestion?
so yeah. So Krunal, so firstly, I'm not very well informed about how that would work. So you should have that discussion probably with like an immigration consultant. Like I know someone I can recommend. So feel free to send me a direct message. I know someone who was actually a previous guest on my show, who I can refer. Maybe he should be able to answer that question for you. But yeah, that might be another option as well, right? You come here on as a student, and maybe that might make it simpler. So again, I'm not very familiar with the process. So just send me a direct message. I'll introduce you to my previous guest, and maybe he might be able to help you with that further.
Oh, that's really helpful. That's really awesome. Thank you, and
Yeah,
I
no.
love your.
Thank you so much, Kunal, and thanks so much for your question. Hope that helps, and have a fantastic day. All right.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, awesome question there from Kunal. All right, so let me take a couple of more questions. And okay, so Suzeli says thank you so much. Hey, no worries, Suzeli. Gabriela says yes, helps. No worries, Gabriela. Purnima says short and crispy single page resume or lengthy resume. Which one is the best? Neither, Purnima. You need to aim for relevance, right? Relevance and value. And if you can communicate your relevant projects, relevant experience, and communicate your value in one page, hey, that's great. But if you need a couple of pages to do it, that's great as well. All right. So I would focus on relevance and value. That's what you need to focus on. No worries, Purnima. And then Gaurav says, get at least 3 years work permit to make your PR process smooth. All right. So that's some advice for Krunal from Gaurav. So thanks for sharing that, Gaurav. All right, folks. Looks like that's it for questions. So hope everyone found this session helpful. For those of you attending the TO Tech Career Fair, I'll see you this afternoon if you're attending my session. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, thanks so much for tuning in. Mark your calendars, folks. Every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, I go live right here to speak about various job search topics and answer your questions live. I encourage all of you to call in live. I love interacting with all of you folks that are tuning in, but also happy to interact with those of you who are putting in your questions in the comments as well. All right. So everyone have a fantastic week. And hey, keep pushing through in your job search, folks. I'm here to help you. Keep following me, and I'm putting out constant job search related content and topics on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope as well, which is from what I understand going to be retired soon, and it's going to be on Twitter. All right. So anyway, everyone take care. Have a fantastic week, everyone.